Is Dr. Bruce or no?
I didn't see Dr. Bruce. They could have got there early. Amber and whoever is stopping for coffee.
Tim Hortons?
Yeah.
On March 29th, 2019, Dr. Czar and a group of his students visited the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio.
A little bit of history along with a little bit of the ghost stories to the best of my ability, with as much as we can get into in 2 hours. Also, I usually do take a spot or two and do a very short, sort of abbreviated communication session so you can all see what that looks like and how that might happen. So we have all of that here to fit into 2 hours. We've got a lot of terrain to cover. Unfortunately, we get the short stick every time, and we have to do the workout tour here today. So I hope we're all ready to get our steps in because we are about to do several flights of stairs, and unfortunately we have to do them twice. It's just how the tour works out so that we do not hit the other tour who's going to be in the front of the building, so we're actually going to go to the back of the building first, and then we will flip-flop about halfway through the night. So take a nice deep breath before we get going. It'll be beneficial for you. And I will see you on the top. We've got to get up to the 3rd floor, so follow me. Okie dokie, so let's talk here real quickly about flashlights before we go any further, because that journey wasn't too dark. We probably made it okay, but from here on out it's going to be pretty dark, as you can tell. So I recommend that we use flashlights when we're moving, particularly on the stairs, because they are metal and they are going to hurt when you fall on them. So very good idea to do. However, when we're in an area like this, really not necessary. You're going to have a better experience this way, because if anybody's here trying to see something, your eyes are never going to adjust if we have lights on. So you're going to have a lot better time seeing something if we are standing in darkness. So just a suggestion there for you. Also, when we are in an area, there'll be a couple places where I'll let you explore around. Feel free to use flashlights. I just suggest that you do not shine them up at the ceiling because we do have bats. They will stay up there sleeping unless your LED flashlight shines in their eyes. That will wake them up, they will fly around, and then we'll be screaming all night long because we do not know where they're going to be. So, if your flashlights are on, keep them on the ground, and that is not going to be an issue. This area we're standing in, we're actually still in the front of the building, we're not to the actual prison part yet. And the rest of our tour, the second half of our tour is going to be exploring more of the front of this building here. But this area we're standing in now would have been used for guard housing. So these 4 rooms that you see surrounding us here, if a guard was single or wanted to have a really short commute to work, he can rent these out by the week or by the month and have a very short commute to work. In the front of the building, we're going to find out about other people living here, which included the warden, the chaplain, the assistant warden, and their families. So all of these people did live on site all the way up until about the 1960s. So that's the area we're looking at right now, is still housing. You will notice in a little bit when we go up the stairs, we're going to go through a big thick steel door. That is going to mark the cutoff point between the front of the building where families are living and the back of the building where the inmates would have been living. So as soon as we get to the steel door, everything from then on out is going to be stone, brick, and steel, and all of that is going to be a symbol of inmate housing. Now, some things that happen in this area. Very interesting spots to start out my tour, because this is a very active location, which is a really random spot, I know. But last year, at about this time, it was early on in the season, I had a ghost walk right here where we're standing, and I was telling him all the information I just shared with you. And as soon as I'm finished, an older woman approaches me and very, very calmly says, "Just so you know, while you were talking, a shadow figure walked right behind you." I said, "Oh, okay, good to know. Yeah, I'm glad to know somebody was back there." Interesting thing about this is I did not feel anything. So usually when we associate paranormal activity, we associate with chills or hot spots or cold spots or goosebumps or something. I had absolutely no indication that this had happened. However, it gets better because a few weeks later, 2-3 weeks later, I have a group up here and I'm telling them that story. And in the middle of the story, I have a couple people in my group raise their hands and say, yeah, there is a shadow figure standing on your right-hand side. And again, I felt nothing, had no indication that this was happening, I saw nothing. But for whatever reason, about half the group was seeing this thing that I have not seen yet. So, I don't know anything about this shadow guy, I don't know who he is. When he was here, don't know any information about him, other than I have never seen him myself, and I have never been able to talk to him. I've tried, and what I've tried in this area is something that's called a pendulum. And I'm going to bring mine out here and show you what that looks like. So, pendulum here, how this works is it's a nice little, sorry, I didn't mean to show you guys. It's a nice little stone on a chain. This one is quartz. So, other things that you can do to replicate this is if you have a necklace, sometimes that works. Anything with a little bit of weight on it should work as well. And the idea behind this is I can ask yes or no questions. And if the answer is yes, it should swing back and forth pretty significantly. Obviously, I'm human and I breathe, so it's going to be moving a little bit, as you can see now, but it's just sort of shaking a little. And when I ask a question, you're going to see if the answer is yes, it's going to move pretty significantly. And if the answer is no, it's going to remain as it is now. So I brought this down a couple of times here and tried to talk to Shadow Guy. I tried to talk to him on every tour, never get through to him. I get through to other people, but for whatever reason I have not seen this Shadow Guy or can get any information on the Shadow Guy. So I'm going to take a few minutes and try this out, so I'll get us started, and then feel free to jump in and ask any yes or no question you would like to. Is there anybody here with us tonight? If you are here, could you please swing the pendulum for me? Gotta give me more than that if you're here. Very good, thank you. Can you stop it for me? Anybody want to ask a question? Don't be shy.
Were you an inmate here?
No.
Were you the warden's wife?
No. So were you a guard? You were a guard here. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Somebody's got to know something.
Oh, yeah.
like bats? Yeah, me neither.
The answer would be no. All right, we're going to move on, but thank you, whoever is here, for talking with us. We'll be back around in another couple hours. So does anybody have any questions before we continue on? Okay, if not, we're going to head up the short staircase here, here at the Reformatory. So, for the beginning of its life, this would have been the chapel that housed all of the men here for church services. So, part of the Reformation process, in addition to teaching these men a skill, which Becky talked about, part of it was also religion. So, that means that in the early years, religion was mandatory. So, we had to house all of the men in this facility in this singular location for a while. However, as the prison was expanding, we decided to build a different chapel outside of the bar. This one was then converted to a Catholic chapel to only serve Catholics. However, in the later years, it was converted into a recreation hall where they mounted televisions on the wall and allowed some indoor recreation space for the inmates to enjoy. Some notable stories in here. This is actually sort of a hot spot as well, but a lot of people really don't stop to investigate here for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just because they want to get to the cell blocks and all the other spots, but not a lot of people stop here and investigate. However, a woman in a green dress has been spotted up here who we think might be the wife of a guard or perhaps the chaplain's wife at one time, who we believe played either the organ or the piano. Now, if you look up on the stage, you'll notice that there is our doors. From time to time, people will come up those stairs we just came up and hear organ or piano music playing, which there is no explanation for, because as you can see, we do not have either of those things up here anymore. So that would be an example of a residual type haunting here. Another thing that has been spotted in this room is sitting in one of the pews. There has been the apparition of what appeared to be an inmate. This was reported to me by a ghost hunter here and a small group of guests who were on a public ghost hunt. They said they sat and watched this thing for a couple of minutes and then it vanished really quickly. They didn't have really any evidence to show us or to prove us that this happened, other than this wonderful story that they said they got to watch happen for a couple of minutes. So things do happen up here, just for whatever reason, not a place that people stop to take advantage of. We are going to move, though, to another really big hotspot that a lot of people flock to during a ghost hunt. That's hit and miss on nights, of course, because so many people go there. But it is a pretty notorious location around here, and that area is the West Attic. Before we go in, however, a couple of warnings for you. There is a little step here that you're going to want to watch on your way in. Just be very careful. And on the other side, there's going to be a ramp up. So that sometimes catches people, so just be aware. Really overcrowded. So, at one time, the length of both of these walls are filled with bunks, all the way down to that doorway. So, housing a couple hundred men up here at a time. Advantage of this is these guys had bunk-style housing. So, cell blocks, people are locked in their little cell at night, usually 2 person per cell, don't have a lot of room to stretch legs or walk around. However, notice, as we're seeing in here right now, it gets very, very dark at night, because there are no windows, and there is only one way in and one way out, and we came in that way. So, when it was lights out, these guys are not going to have the luxury of flashlights, and they're not locked up, which may be a luxury in this case, so they have free range. It's going to be really hard to move around, but if you manage to do so, and you land yourself in some other dude's bed, probably not going to be very happy with you. And now we have, we assume, some sort of altercation going on. So, you can imagine not going to be a pleasant place to live. However, to make matters worse, most of the guys that were housed up here were not the reformatory men. These are not your 13, 14, 15-year-old pickpocketers. A lot of these guys came from the Ohio Pen. Unfortunately, there was a massive fire at the Ohio Pen in the 1930s. After the fire, they had to send some of the men here. So, rather than having the pickpocketers side by side, these guys ended up here because of overcrowding. So murderers, rapists, those sorts of men side by side. So, again, definitely not a place you would have wanted to be living. And some of the activity that goes on up here, there's a guy by the name of Mr. B. He's got some buddies that roam around up here with him. And he's more of an intellectual spirit, more of an intelligent spirit. So, from time to time, he'll tug on a jacket. So if you have long sleeves, if you have a coat on, he'll tug on that every once in a while. If you have long hair and your hair's down, he might pull on your hair. So if you feel that, make sure nobody's around you, you're not by a wall. Otherwise, it's probably Mr. B or the boys. Now, he doesn't mean this out of harm, simply just playing games with you. So he likes to mess around with people. He does that from time to time. So just be advised that might happen. That's probably who it is. Also, we're able to corroborate, which is really cool. His name here is written on somewhere on my left side. One of these areas of the wall, Mr. Bertain, and his inmate number. So we're actually able to corroborate his name with his inmate number with our record. So that's a pretty cool thing to be able to say, and that's not always the case. Now, another cool thing that happens up here, again, from time to time, there doesn't seem to be any pattern to it, because I've tried. It happens daytime, nighttime, summer, winter. There's really no corroboration with it. But every once in a while, you will get the smell of smoke. And again, we're in a room with no windows, and we're in the back of that room. And we have a smoking area, however, it's down 5 tiers around the corner. So a little bit of a stretch to convince me that that's the smoking area. Also, most people report this smell as more of a campfire smoke rather than a cigarette smoke. Those are two different distinct smells. So, best explanation for this is, again, a residual from the guys from the Ohio Pen. Because think about it, if you've ever been to a campfire, even for 5 minutes, and you go inside, you still reek of smoke. Even if you change your clothes, it's really hard to get rid of that smell sometimes. So bring 100 or so men in here who are smelling like that. You can imagine that this place is going to smell like smoke for a little while. So we still get that from time to time up here as well. Also, one last thing up here, one of the very interesting experiences you can have, almost guaranteed to happen, because it happens to me almost every time, if you spend long enough here, and you look back the way we came from, you have a nice little cutout of the door, because the prisons behind us let in enough light all night long through the chapel to illuminate that doorway. So you sit up here for a good period of time, you'll get used to that light. And then, after a while, you will notice that the light starts to disappear, and you think your eyes are playing tricks on you, except for everybody else in the room is seeing it too, almost as if somebody's stepping in front of the door, moving out, and playing with the light. A couple interesting stories that or experiences I had with that. At the end of last year, so November-ish, I was up here with another staff member and a couple of guests, and we were up here for 2 hours because it was this active. And we're standing about where we're at, and we're looking out the door. And we see, kid you not, somebody walk in the room, it appeared to look like, walked in the room with almost what looked like a light on their head, turned a left and walked towards the wall. So we start yelling, hey, is somebody down there, somebody down there, if you're down there, let us know, is anybody down there? No response. So one of our staff members takes off down to the end, looks around and says, guys, there's nobody down here. Interesting thing is we never saw that light leave the room if it was a person. And we just saw it walk towards the wall and it was gone. And we never heard any footsteps coming or going, it was just gone. It gets better though. A few minutes after this happens, we stay here, we wait around, and we're still seeing just some interesting shadow play. But the really interesting thing about this is it started to get foggy in here. A really, really thick fog. And we know it was fog and it wasn't just our eyes playing tricks on us because living people came in with flashlights. And you know that look where fog's hitting car lights and you can tell it's just sort of like blurry? That is how their flashlights looked when we walked in the room. The fog disappeared as soon as they got in the room, or after they had been in the room. And then as soon as they left, a few minutes later the fog was back. Weird. I have no explanation for it, and both me and the other staff member had said we've never seen that before, and don't really know what that could have been, for it to come and then go and then come back. So just some very interesting experiences that we've had up here with light play and shadow play and stuff that there's really no explanation for. Does anybody have any questions for me? All right, so we are going to keep moving. However, our next plan of attack, is going to be getting all the way to the ground floor. So there's 5 tiers out below us. We got to go next. So we're going to get on the staircase. That's going to take us all the way to the bottom. I'll be there waiting for you. We'll hang around the bottom area until everybody gets to that point, and then we will continue on. And it's early on in the season, like April, May, somewhere in that time. It's about 10 in the morning, 10:30. Before the gates open, the only people in the building are me, some other staff members, and people up front opening the front desk and museum store. So we're turning the lights on in the morning, and we stop right here to meet, talk about the day, you know, how many people we think we're going to have, how we think it's going to go, who's giving tours, and so on. And it's clear as day, all of us stop in the middle of our sentence because we heard footsteps. To the point where I could have sworn to you somebody was going to come around the corner down there. And so we wait, and 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 nobody ever comes around the corner. Again, the only other people in this building that were not with me were up at the front of the building. So very, very weird and interesting experience for me to have had. That was in my first month. A few months after this, middle of summer, I've had two very interesting experiences in a place that I don't know if anybody else has ever had an experience because it's really odd, and that is in the elevator. It is a modern elevator. It's not anything weird, creepy to get into. It goes up one floor. It's on the other side of this wall here. It goes up one floor. That's all it does. But one day, it was around 1 o'clock, so I was going up to take my lunch break, and I was on my phone. I was just chilling, not really thinking about anything but food because I was hungry. As soon as the door is about to close, I heard a voice that says, "Go away," just like that. I looked for my phone. I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm kind of stuck on the elevator here until I get to the second floor. Didn't really think much about it. Thought, okay, you know what, maybe that was just, you know, my mind playing tricks on me. Go to have lunch. Don't think much about it. Except a couple weeks later, 1 o'clock, I'm going up to take my lunch break, and I'm on my phone. And I'm not even thinking about the last experience. And the door's about to close, and the voice says, "Sydney." I was like, oh, great, you know my name now. I'm glad we are friends. I have no information on that person. Don't know anything about something happening on the elevator that could be related to. Don't know. And I haven't had that experience since then. So that was, again, 4 years ago. I haven't had it in the last 3 years. So don't know what to think, who that was. They've moved on to another place and not entirely sure what to think. Other than I know that it happened, and it was just a really, really weird experience to have because I was alone and the building was essentially empty. There wasn't a whole lot of guests here, so don't know what to think about that experience. But we are going to head down to the next spot, which is the West Showers, which is a lot of interesting things go on there as well. So we're going to head that way. Though is older, believe it or not. This was the one that opened in 1896 when the building opened and houses first 150 inmates here. So as I told you, there are 5 tiers. There's about 35 cells per range, approximately. So that's somewhere around 350 cells. Usually house 2 men per cell. However, because of overcrowding, some of them housed 4, so the counting's a little bit weird, but somewhere in the range of 700 men could be living over here. Which sounds like a lot, but on the other side, in the east, it could be up to 1,200 men. So, significantly less men. They had a little bit of extra space here. So, for these reasons, inmates nicknamed the West Cell Block the Hilton, and the other side, the Motel 6, because this is where you wanted to be if you had a choice. So for that reason, the West Cell Block mostly housed trustees and guys whose term was ending. So if you're about to get paroled, if you're about to get released, they would most likely move you over here because they're less likely to break your parole, less likely to get in trouble, because these guys are better behaved. On the other side has the young, the rowdy, the rough guys. If they hear you're going to get parole, they're going to do anything they can to break that so that you do not get out of prison because they're not getting out of prison. That is just how it worked. If you look up on the second tier there, you see this is why we don't take that stuff there. It's only about waist high. This is prison. That's a very bad idea. Even though these were better behaved inmates, it's still a prison. Guards and or inmates did jump and or were pushed over them. Don't know how many who win any of those statistics, but we know that it happened enough for the state of Ohio to come and wrap the entire thing in chain link fence to eliminate that problem. So eventually there was a chain link fence there, and nobody could happen that. Nobody could do that anymore, but that doesn't take away the lives that they've already lost from that way. This is our next one. They actually use this as part of the prison for the prison self-security. Yep, that was all Hollywood. Makeshift. They actually filmed that in the Westinghouse factory in downtown Mansfield. Oh, okay. So this is the West Showers, showering all of the men that we just talked about living in the West Cell Block. So you can see some of the remnants here, goes around, almost set up locker room style is what I think of in here. Doesn't look that appealing, but again, is more luxurious than what you're going to experience in the other side. So the other tour goes to the east cell, or the east cell block in the east showers, which has a lot of activity as well. I just have had more experiences here. But over there, it's just one long tube with water coming out of it, and they would shower all 1,200 inmates in a day, march them in, march them out. They had about a 30-second shower once a week. For that reason, they named the east showers a car wash. That is exactly how it worked. Over here, not the case, we're only getting 700 men in here in a day, which is still a lot, but you can imagine we're actually going to have a little bit more time because we have almost half the men that we have to get through here. So another reason to live here in the West Cell Block. One of the most notable experiences I've had in here, this was also last year, towards the end of the year, last winter, September, October, somewhere in there probably. I had a laser grid set up here, just like I have now. Over here in this room, I have a flashlight. I was in here with a couple other members as well, and over by this window, there's a flashlight sitting on the floor. What looks like one of my hands. Asking him to try and turn the flashlight on, asking him to try and do something with the laser grid. Flashlights, nothing happens to the flashlights. A little on and off like once, but nothing really substantial, so we kind of ignored that. However, what we did hear, very, very interesting, we heard boom, 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 just this bang. It sounded like footsteps, but it sounded like footsteps that were walking with purpose. So typically we think footsteps when we think something like that. This was not the case. It was definitely very distinct, almost sounded as if it had like a boot or a heel, was walking with purpose, like I said. So I did not know this, but one of the people I was with realized that where we heard the footsteps from was over near that corner along the wall there by that glass window, and that is close to the area where the wall used to connect. So, logically, we decided that possibly could have been a guard who was either taking his post or was pacing back and forth along the wall. There is a floor above us, however, we went to go upstairs and check, and it was locked that night. So there was no living people up there, and if we couldn't even get up there. So that was definitely overruled. Could have been, the footsteps could have been the spirit above us, but definitely sounded more like we were coming over from that area. But it gets better, because while this happens, we're still talking, we're trying to communicate, and we did get this on the show recorder, by the way. But my laser grid here dies. You can see how bright it is. This thing, I've only tried this thing 3 times. I've had it die on me a couple of times, and 75% of the time does not battery. Of course, it can be battery rate, but usually what I do is I turn it back on. If I turn it back on and it's like this and it doesn't die right away, then it's not a battery. So, very interesting for it to have done that, but it gets better because we said, oh, okay, well, maybe it's the battery. Can you turn the laser grid back on? And it actually turned the laser grid back on. That happened to be one other time. It was in solitary confinement. I'll tell you that story when we get there. But so excited about this experience, we walk back, with purpose, walk back to the kitchen where everybody else, all the other staff members are hanging out. And we go up to the first group we find and we said, hey, you never believe what happened to us in the West Showers. Oh, are you hearing it too? I said, what are you talking about? Are you hearing it too? We were there a few hours ago, and we heard the footsteps. So, both of us have had the same exact experience, hours apart, the same thing. So, whatever we were hearing, don't know if that was a guard or not, but whatever we were hearing, other people were hearing too that night for whatever reason. So, very interesting when somebody else is able to have the same experience and they're not with you. You need to tell them what we heard, and they were able to validate that they had experienced the same thing. So, any questions? So we are going to go back the direction we came and head to take that same route and walk back up here. And after the fact, while everybody else was in solitary, a couple of my pushers, a couple of my staff members in the back of the tour were telling me that they were hearing them being at the very back of the tour. I was already up here in this room. We're hearing doors slamming. They said it sounded like the cell door slammed 3 times. Bang, bang, bang. And they said it's not a door closing anywhere else. It was very distinctly a cell door closing. So, very interesting experience to have. That just goes to show that you never know when something is going to happen. So, next location. solitary confinement. Personally, my favorite place here, and that is because, I know very stereotypical, however, that is because a majority of my experiences have happened right here in solitary confinement. So I'm going to take you in there, tell you what you need to know about it, tell you a couple stories, because if I told you them all, we'd be here all day, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun. Obviously, these doors are really heavy too, so wind's not going to be moving any of these doors in here because they're all really big, thick steel. So, solitary confinement, some of the basics that you need to know. This, what you're looking at here, as bad as it looks, is the third version of solitary. The very first two were in the basement below us, and they were far worse. The first form of solitary, first form of punishment here that we know of is what was called the hole. Reason being is that is exactly what it was, a hole in the ground. Put inmates in it, they'd serve their time. That was ruled cruel and unusual. Then they went to what's called 8 by 8, where they would chain inmates up for 8 hours, forcing them to stand down to the ground for 8 hours, forcing them to sit, rotating that process until their time was up. Also cruel and unusual. So then they built these. However, if you venture in the back here in a minute, you'll notice the back is your normal type bar door cell, like we were seeing throughout the West cell block. These solid steel you see here was not added until later when the place became maximum security as added punishment. In which case they're going to put you in the back. If you're still not getting the message, they're going to move you out front. Now when they first built these cells, you slept on the floor with no clothing. Again, That's not very nice.
cruel and unusual, so they didn't put a cot there, which you can see today, and you were issued cotton overalls and cotton booties. Not much, but it's something. Most notorious event that occurred in solitary is about a guard by the name of Frank Hanger. Frank is doing his rounds here in solitary as he always did. However, on this particular day, he is not aware that the guys in the first few cells had broken out, and they're waiting for him. So Frank Hanger walks through the doorway and is beaten to death with an iron pipe. A lot of people believe Frank is still here. There have been reports of hearing footsteps, keys jingling, and seeing shadow figures throughout the solitary area, again believed to be Frank Hanger. So, favorite story on solitary confinement. I was here, this was last year, also early last year, on a ghost hunt. Public ghost hunt, and I was about 3/4 of the way that way towards the door, standing with two guests. I happened to glance just above their head to see a shadow figure, see what the exit sign is, there's a doorway there, to see a shadow figure walk from left to right. His head hit just underneath the exit sign. One of the members I was talking with happened to glance up just as this is happening. I said, "Did you just see that?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What did you see?" He said, "Shadow figure, left to right." Same exact thing. Of course, didn't have anything going, didn't have any evidence of this, but what we did next is we pull our laser grid back out, and I set it on the floor, right in this doorway area here. And we're talking to it, and we're saying, "Hey, we saw you come out, make a noise, show yourself," you know, so on and so forth. In 5-10 minutes of doing this, the laser grid does something like this. It's just flickering, on and off, on and off, on and off. Brighter, darker, brighter, darker, brighter, darker, brighter, darker. Have no idea how it happened. Have no idea why it happened. Don't really have any explanation for it, other than the fact that I've seen it die before, and I've seen it come back on, but I've never seen it flicker like that. So again, no explanation for you, other than we happen to see a shadow figure, put the thing down, and this happens. Interestingly enough, 2 Saturdays ago, I was here on a ghost hunt, and I was upstairs in the cell above us here. And I was in there by myself, a staff member was next door. And I had this flashlight, this exact flashlight I'm holding on the bed, and I'm sitting next to it. I said, "Okay, if anybody's in here, turn the light on, let me know you're here." And not in there more than 2 minutes, and the light comes on. I said, "Hey, David," he was next to me. I said, "Come over here, the light just turned on." So he comes over and he stands outside the cell, and 4 or 5 more guests walk up, and they're standing outside the cell, and I'm still the only one inside. Ended up having 10-12 minute conversation with somebody in there who was turning the flashlight on and off on command as I asked them to. I did get that on video, so after the tour, if you're interested in seeing that, I would be more than happy to show you a clip of that. So, That actually happened twice last Saturday, once in solitary confinement and once over in the East Cell Block, and we talked to that person for probably 15-20 minutes. So for whatever reason, we're very into using the flashlight last 2 weekends ago. So here's where we get to a little bit of fun. This is optional, you don't have to do it, but this is your chance. No more than 2 per cell. There's cells on the other side, there's cells back there. I want you to go into a cell, I want you to sit. However, the rule of thumb is absolutely no talking. If you think you're going to talk, don't ruin it for everybody, just leave with me. But if you want to have a genuine experience, I'm going to give you 5-10 minutes to sit in there in absolute silence and see if you feel anything, see anything, hear anything. I will leave, so you will not hear me at all, and I will not come back in until your time is up. Okay, so go ahead, grab a cell. I'll tell you when I'm going to start the time.
You guys gonna do it? No. I am. Absolutely.
Are you going?
You want to do it?
Yeah, hell yeah. You know.
All right, let's do it.
Yep.
Oh, this is gonna be
You're welcome to sit down, do whatever you need to do, just do not shut the cell doors.
Yeah, if you guys don't want to, you don't have to, of course, but I am.
Oh, Abby, if you have to pee, I mean, go right ahead. Please. Okay.
There's some cells down there too.
You okay? Read that yet? I'm scared.
5-10 minutes.
Okay. Wait, where did we go?
There's some cells down there. There's plenty along here. There's also some on the other side.
I'm not doing my own. It's like I already moved so far.
I guess I'll go to the last one then or something. I'll have to my flashlight. I don't know if I'd want to do that. Nope. Anything cool happen?
Cardboard cutout of Mr. Red. Discussion. There's also one of them in this room because this is the parole board room. So we have them in there. People come day and night, like to take photos with them, and go home and show everybody and say they met with agreement. No exception for ghost hunters. We had a ghost hunting group here one time who decided to take a picture with Mr. Red. So he goes up there, puts his arm around Red, photo snapped, he steps away. Shadow figure also steps away from behind the cutout. Obviously it was dark out, so it's a shadow. God knows who it was. However, it was probably not Morgan Freeman. And I'll tell you how many people ask me that question. That's not how that works. Another interesting experience that happens here almost routinely. After some of our 5 a.m. ghost hunts, some people stayed here overnight. At the very end of the hallway, to the left-hand side, there's a room there that has like a air mattress and stuff. Some people stay overnight. So right about 6 a.m., people, their heads finally hit the pillow, they're ready to go to bed because they got an early morning, and almost without question, they hear the sound of metal buckets and mops sloshing around the floors. Now there are no metal buckets left in the building, nor should there be anybody mopping the floors at 6 a.m. anyways. They're also the only people in the building. The building is locked. All the guests are out by this point. So they've gotten so used to this happening. How they solve the problem is they open the door, yell out, "Would you please keep it down out there? We are trying to sleep. Thank you." And the noise usually does subside. So at least they are generous in that regard. Last thing in this area, down the hallway to the right, actually when we came off the staircase, there would have been a room on the left. That's the archive office. Our other tour guide, Becky, the one who gave you the intro speech, she is our archivist, so she works in there daytime, nighttime, sometimes just some really interesting hours. And that used to be the chaplain's kitchen. However, there's no kitchen equipment in there anymore, no blenders, no microwaves, no toasters, nothing like that, no fridges, no stoves. However, she has reported smelling just some random like pancakes, waffles, dinner, lunch, brunch, just in the middle of the day. Almost as if somebody is still in there making meals for their family, although again, there is none of that stuff left over. So again, that's another sign of a sort of residual smell that we experience around here. There's a lot of smells that go on here. We're actually going to get to 2 more of those when we continue to the warden's office, or the warden's living quarters. But before we do that, does anybody have any questions? Okay, don't forget about the cardboard cutout. We do not. Actually, the room you checked in would have been the warden's dining room, so we're at that big long table. That would have been his dining room. His kitchen's also going to be down there, where our current museum story is. That would have been other of those sorts down there as well. Second floor here would have been the main living area, so this is going to be the family bedrooms, the living rooms, where they're spending most of their time. And the floor above us, which we're going to get to here in a few minutes, would have mostly been for guest space and for storage. Now, the last warden family to live here on site is the Glatke family, Art Glatke the warden, and his wife Helen, and they did have 2 young boys. So yes, when I mean family, I mean children included, actually did live here within the walls, again, all the way up until about the 1960s, so no exceptions. If you have kids, if you have wife, whatever, they're living here with you. This is very strange for us today, but back then, it's actually not that strange. A lot of other prisons, even some penitentiaries, some higher security prisons, had their wardens and such living on site or within the walls. So not strange for back then, it is strange for today's time. Now, the Glatke family was the longest family to be living here. They were here somewhere around 30 years. So that's the one we tend to talk about. That's the one we have the most information on because we did get a lot of information from the boys after getting control of the building. They had a relatively normal life living here. The warden back then was sort of a political figure within society. So every once in a while he would have meetings here. He would have events. So on the 3rd floor, when we go up there, you're going to notice on the end of the room, there's a raised floor that was a stage. He could bring in entertainment for his guests. They had an inmate band who could play up there, or he could bring in any other sort of entertainment. Also, they say that that was a dance floor up there. He would host dances and all sorts of events going on upstairs. So, political figure, kind of an important dude back then, the warden would have been. Boys had a relatively normal childhood as well. They have reported using their rollerblades and riding around on all these nice smooth floors.
It's great until they hit a door or a wall or steps or something. Other than that, it'd be fine. 2 floors below us is a nice big basement. They used to set up BB ranges, shoot the BB guns. You used to play hide and seek down there. Outside in that big grass area you passed on your way in, they used to ride their dirt bikes. Across the street in a pond, they would fish. Personal favorite story. They used to climb the trees by the pond there, which overlooks the guards' parking lot, and shoot at guards' cars. Yeah, Mom and Dad probably did not know about that activity. But, as I said, relatively normal childhood for them. Now, unfortunately, they do experience tragedy during their stay here. In 1950, their mother, Helen, is in the back room on the left-hand side, the family bedroom, in the closet reaching for a jewelry box. However, what she doesn't know is that on top of the box is the warden's gun. So she pulls the box down, then hits the floor, discharges, hits her in the left lung. She dies a few days later at Mansfield Hospital. She does not die here. However, many people believe she is still around. She has been seen leaving the bedroom, walking up towards me, and going to my right here, which would have been their bathroom. So she has been seen. However, more often than not, she is associated with a scent. That's where another scent comes in. So, associated with Helen Gladkey is the scent of roses. So, some people describe it as like a rose perfume or like a rose flower. That was her favorite scent, her favorite flower. So, if you ever smell that in this area, it usually means Helen is around. However, 9 years later, 1959, the warden Arthur Gladkey suffers a heart attack in his office. He dies like that day at the hospital as well. So he doesn't die here, but people have reported that he is still around. With him, it's the smell of cherry-flavored pipe tobacco, which is not a very common smell. So if you come across that, that usually means that Art Sr. is somewhere around. As for the boys, after the death of their parents, they are adopted and raised essentially by the assistant warden and his family until they are old enough to graduate from Mansfield High School. And then they go on to attend Ashland University, which is just up the road. And by the 60s, nobody lives here on site anymore. At that time, we're starting to become maximum security. Also, after the death of the Gladkeys, just really not a great idea to have them living on site, so they are moved off. Which makes this front of the building here no longer needed for its intended use. So sometimes these areas weren't used at all. Sometimes they are used for storage, an office or two. Aside from that, not a whole lot. In today's time, one of the boys has since passed away, Art Jr. He died a few years ago of cancer, so not quite as tragic as his parents. As for if he's here, I don't have any substantial evidence that he is. And what I mean by that is I haven't talked to him, and nobody reliable that I know has had a conversation with him, but it's very possible. I know people have tried, and I don't see why he wouldn't be, but I just don't have any substantial evidence to share with you. Theodore, though, you will not talk to because he is still alive. He's living out west somewhere, getting up there in age, but he is living out west somewhere, is still alive, and does still call us up from time to time and thank him for taking care of his home. It was their boyhood home, the only home they really knew. Any questions before we head on up?
Was it mandatory for the warden to live in the prison?
In the early years, I believe so, and I don't know why you would choose not to, because you don't have to pay for anything. Everything's done for you. You're going to have houseboys who do your cooking, who do your cleaning. Only thing you got to consider is the safety risk, but back then they really weren't thinking about stuff like that. It just wasn't really something on their mind. It was pretty secure for them to live up here. Actually, to the point where some inmates were teaching the children, the young boys, how to drive. They were that trustworthy of some of the inmates. Also, keep in mind, this is back in the years when we're still a reformatory, so you're looking at 13-year-old pickpocketers. You're not your murderers quite yet. Good question. All right, so a couple remarks before we head on up. When you get up there, you're welcome. I'm going to give you some time to roam around and look at things. Just remember, keep your flashlights down from the bats, but there's several rooms you can explore before we move on. But I do recommend that when we go up the stairs here, you take the staircase on the right-hand side, because if you take the staircase on the left, you will hit a wall. This is how we decide who is living and who is not living on our tour. We don't know what this room was ever used for. All of the blueprints and different records we have, none of them answer that question. We know things move around from time to time, so it could have been a whole bunch of things, but we don't know what any of those are. Some of the best speculations I've heard include a dark room to develop film, as we're seeing, dark. Other people say it is a guard's lounge because down the hallway, recall, that's where the guards were living. So, possible. And others say it was nothing more than a giant storage closet. Could be all three, could be none. However, pretty certain it was not torture. People say that because keep in mind it was still in the front of the building. So again, the only guys up here are the trustees. All the punishment ordeal is going to go on in the back of the building where the inmates are living. Just makes more sense. However, about the chair, we didn't just put a random chair in here to be weird. At one time or another, I don't know why they did this or why they thought to do this, but paranormal investigators were here and they decided we're going to put a chair in the middle of the floor. Now, it was not this chair, it was a wooden chair that was broken by a guest a few years back, so this chair takes its place. But they set a wooden chair in here, they left the room and they shut the door, and they came back and supposedly the chair has moved on its own. Now I say supposedly because I have never seen it happen, and nobody that I know of has ever seen it happen. However, I'm told that the chair that's in here today has done the same thing. Again, never seen that one do it either. So, that was up to you. But if you YouTube this place, a lot of people come in here and tell me that the chair room is all over YouTube. I personally haven't looked into it, but a lot of people know the chair room for that reason. However, the reason I do like this room for investigating, I don't have a whole lot go on in here, but it is a great room to investigate because there are no windows. So that means that when we're standing here like we are right now, and we start seeing balls of light around the room, and we know that it's none of ours, it's obviously nothing outside. It's not outside lamps, it's not outside cars, or anything else that we might associate, or we might say it is if we were in another location. So, great for that reason. And things have been spotted in here. People have claimed to see white balls of light, blue balls of light, green balls of light, which we call orbs here. So, orbs of all different colors have been spotted. Some people are standing within the room when this happens. Some people are sitting on that staircase that I started the tour on and looking into this room and seeing it happen. So it has been seen. Cool thing about it though is that we don't normally believe orbs too much, you know, because it can always be this or that, a flashlight, a car, somebody else. But in an environment like this, we can track all of those sources. So if you see a light, then you know that it's more likely an orb than anywhere else. So we are going to continue our tour. We don't have a whole lot left to cover, but we're going to start our decline now. Pictures here, one being Shawshank, another being Air Force One with Harrison Ford. Harry and Walter go to New York, and Tango and Cash. So parts of all of those movies were filmed here. Out here, out this window, you see this nice big gate. Light on so you can see this nice big gate here. It is fake. It is not in any way, shape, or form ever part of the facility, but was a Hollywood prop. Hollywood just did a really good job of it. So there used to be a fake wall that extends up to the side here and to the side of the building. And when they're filming Air Force One, this place served as a Russian gulag, and they were flying in a Russian military helicopter. Well, when doing this, obviously you have to get some clearance, so they cleared this with the governor and with the local police department and the sheriffs and everybody you think that you have to tell. However, they forgot some very important people, and those are the two people behind us, those two active prisons we have back there. So, Russian military helicopter flies and lands in the middle of Mansfield, Ohio, and is greeted by a bunch of armed guards from both Ricky and Nancy. They had to make some phone calls and explain to them that this is not an invasion. It is simply the filming of a Hollywood movie. Obviously got everything sorted out because the movie came out and did fine. But I always like to tell my guests, for an FYI, if you're ever going to film here and you want to fly in a military helicopter, please tell the guys behind us because it will save you a whole lot of work in the future. The 2 floors above us, again, were the assistant warden's living quarters. We're on the opposite side of the building now. But this ground floor was reserved for offices. So the warden's office, assistant warden's office, anybody else who had an office here, they would have been in these various rooms. Now, you notice this area looks very nice in comparison to all of the other areas of the building where the paint is peeling and it just looks like it's about to fall down. This is the most recently restored part of the building. So this area, along with the rest of the first floor, so working towards the direction you came in, is newly restored, and they have about $2 million in restoration cost. So it is a very pricey thing to do, very slow process as well. So took them a couple of years just to do this part, have now worked their way up to the second floor, which is why that's off limits, and they're eventually going to work that way on the second floor and then back up to the third. So we've got a long ways to go, but we have come a long way in just the amount of time that we've had this building, which has been since 1995. Now, if you come back during the daytime, I would recommend it because all of these rooms will be open. We will explore one today, but the rest of these will be open because we are Ohio's prison museum. So behind these locked doors are artifacts not only from the Ohio State Reformatory, but from other prisons throughout the state, including most notably the Ohio State Pen. If you're not familiar with the Ohio State Pen, that was the maximum security prison. In the early days of Ohio's prison history, it housed men, it housed women, it housed offenders of all kinds, the 13-year-olds and the 40-year-old murderers. Everybody was going to the Ohio Pen, and that's part of the reason that the Ohio Reformatory gets built, the Ohio State Reformatory gets built, in order to sort of separate these things out. So we have a women's reformatory that's in Marysville, that helped with that problem. We had a boys' school in Lancaster, which is just a really low security, and then we're this middle stepping stone, or we were this middle stepping stone for a time, bringing in the 13-year-old pickpocketers and so on. But because we are Ohio's Prison Museum, we have all of these various artifacts, and this one over here that I'm going to show you. Daytime, it's all nice and lit up. These are stained glass windows from the chapel at the Ohio State Pen. So these are 3. We have 12 or 15 somewhere in there in total in our archives. So a lot of really great stuff that we have here to look at. However, our most notable exhibit is right here behind this doorway. And we're going to get there, but I'm going to let the suspense build up for a little bit. And I'm going to go on and talk about something else real quickly. And that is the ghost shoes, which Becky mentioned very briefly in the beginning. Most of us are familiar with those, right? There's thousands of them out there somewhere in that vicinity. A couple additional words I wanted to say about that. So, a couple things to keep in mind. If you're fans of the show, that is great. I don't mean to say that's a problem because I'm fans of the show too, so that may be a hypocrite. But what you need to know about watching those shows, when we all go home and watch those all weekend long, we're going to binge watch that, right? Because we've been here and now we're really excited about it. It's really cool. Great idea. But when you watch those shows, keep in mind that when they film, they usually film a week or two at a time, somewhere 7, 10, sometimes 14 days. They fit the best of that into a 1-hour show. So that means that things don't happen on command, which we saw tonight. Some things happen on command, like with the pendulum. That was great. But we didn't walk around the corner and all see a full body apparition. I wish it worked like that, but unfortunately the ghosts are not on the payroll quite yet. So we cannot promise that stuff. However, so as for the mystery room, anybody have any guesses? You've been pondering in on what might be behind door number 1?
If we know, should we say it?
Yeah.
No.
I know, but I don't want to ruin it.
That is true. That is a fact. We have in this room Old Sparky, Ohio's electric chair. So, I'm going to take us in there. We should fit bigger groups in here. It's a small room, so we're going to have to pack in. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to talk about the chair. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of executions in the great state of Ohio, because there's no better way to end a ghost walk than with lots and lots of death. After that time, we transfer over to Old Sparky here. Now this is the actual electric chair. If you go throughout the state, there are like 4 or 5 replicas out there, but they simply are replicas. This one is the original chair. It did come from storage where they had things left over from the Ohio Pen. So very new exhibit, just finished within the last year or so. But it is the actual chair. There's only one actual chair, yes. That was the one they used the entire time of its existence, and it was used all the way up until 1963. In that time, 315 people did die in Old Sparky. 3 of them were women. The rest of them were men, but 3 of the 315 are women. So yes, we did execute women in this state. After 1963, we went to what we still use today, and that is lethal injection. However, for a time, for a short amount of time, Ohio did outlaw the death penalty very briefly, reinstated it, and we still are using it today. However, before we get to the specifics of the chair, back then, distinct change from today's time, they used to house death row in the same facility as Old Sparky. So we said that was at the Ohio Pen. Death row is at the Ohio Pen. On the day of your execution, you're transferred just down the hallway or wherever you're housed to the death chamber. So you have maybe 10-minute walk at most. At today's time, we house death row in Chillicothe, and executions are done in Lucasville, which is at the very southern tip of Ohio. So you have, that's probably what, an hour and a half, 2 hours, something in there drive. Think about what that might have on your mental capacity. You have to think about that your whole drive down there. So I don't know why the change, but that is just a distinct difference from back then into today's time. Now, some of the specifics of this room. Here to the left, this nice fancy display case is a replication of the switchboard. Now, not everything in there is original. Most of that is a reproduction, but it is a reproduction of how the switchboard was set up with the pen. Now, for the state of Ohio, I can't speak for all states, but for the state of Ohio, our switchboard had 2 switches. This is for the mental state of the guys flipping the switches. Same idea when you go back to the days of the firing squad. In some states use firing squad. And everybody fires a bullet, but only one of them is a real bullet. Same idea here. And this is so that you can go home at night and tell your wife, tell your kids, tell yourself that you did not kill the man, the guy next to you did. Because you don't know which one of you had the power to the chair and which one of you did not have the power to the chair. Because you both flipping a switch, nobody's going to know. Next to it's the phone. This is portrayed usually in films that do electrocutions. They always a phone call because it's always canceled at the last minute, right? Somebody's stay of execution, some of their paperwork doesn't go through, something goes wrong. Phone is there, if something goes wrong, if they need to find this out immediately. So, pretty self-explanatory. Here to the right is actual old Sparky, as we've discussed. Now, it is behind a locked door. No, I do not have the key to get in there. I myself have never been in that room. It's locked up for a couple of reasons. One, nobody can investigate in here. So when we do ghost hunts, this room is locked. Nobody is allowed in here. It's just a respect thing. However, that does not mean that a locked door keeps entities in. So personally, I don't try to communicate with the spirits. I just don't really have the desire. But some people have. And according to them, there's somewhere between 15 and 20 spirits that have come with the chair. And according to them, the native spirits, the spirits who were here prior to the chair, not a big fan of the guys who came with it. Don't think that's hard to believe, because considering how they left this earth, probably not too happy in the afterlife either, and I don't think I would be. So, not the friendliest of guys of what we're told. However, still don't see a lot of issues popping up with guests. Some of you asked me about that earlier on the tour. Does anybody get attacked? Is there a lot of negative energy here? And I told you that the only time we see anybody go out with scratches or any bad experiences is when they are provoked. We discourage that. If you treat them with respect, like we have all night long, then they are probably A, more willing to communicate with you, and B, they're going to treat you back with respect. The only time people walk out of here with scratches or something thrown at them is when they say, I bet you can't throw a rock at me, and they get hit with a rock. Or scratch me in the back, I dare you, and they get scratched in the back. It happens, but to the people who are actually asking for it and deserving it to happen to them. So even the guys with the chair, we haven't seen that sort of issue with. Now, second rule, reason it's locked up is nobody can sit in the chair. Again, that's just a respect thing. However, guys had to move it in there. And the restoration guys told me that when they were moving it in there, that underneath the arm rails there, you can feel nail marks, indentations from the guys who were sitting in the chair. So I can share that with you. The right front hand corner, that black mask, again, if you've ever seen any movies portray this, they almost never leave that out. Because, I don't want to say these are public events, because not exactly, but people are there. Still to this day, there has to be a certain amount of witnesses there, so that they can say, yes, this execution occurred, everything went well, or everything did not go well, that nothing was botched. They didn't botch the paperwork, and they're not lying to us. So usually who shows up to these things is families, members of the victim. That happens a lot of times. So he's a murderer, and his victim's family is a lot of times there, and a lot of times his family is there as well. So family of the person actually being executed is usually invited to this as well. Of course, you can choose whether or not you want to attend. Also, a number of journalists are going to be there as well in order to record and make sure, again, that nobody's lying or making anything up about it. So just sort of a witness thing, that is a requirement. Now, back in the day when we were doing public hangings, those are public events and people in the town actually come out to it. The days of the chair, the days of lethal injection, a little bit more private, but it's still, there's still attendance there. So the mask is so that nobody has to watch what happens to the face when you are being electrocuted. On the back wall behind you here, there is a big black gate. That is also from the Ohio Pen. So that is the door to the death house at the Ohio Pen that housed Old Sparky. So you can think of it as being one of the last sights these guys are seeing as they're going into the death chamber and into Old Sparky. To the right, there is a small photo that is actually a postcard, and those men are guards. But behind them, there's an open door, and that door is the black grate there on the wall. So you can sort of see how the setup would have been going into the death chamber at the Ohio Pen. Now, just sort of for fun fact, I told you in the state of Ohio we do lethal injection. I believe it's somewhere around 30 out of 50 states in the United States do have legalized the death penalty. I think it's around 30. However, a selection of those states, a handful of those states, all of them have lethal injection as the primary method, but a handful of them do have options for if you want to go out in like a cooler fashion or something. I don't know. But some of them do have the option to go by electric chair if you choose to do that for whatever reason. Some of them you are able to go by gas chamber, which is very expensive. But it is an option in some states. Some states do still have the option of public hanging or firing squad or all of these different methods of execution. Not in the state of Ohio. We solely have lethal injection, but a handful of states out there do let you choose. However, it is the inmate's choice. So by default, it would be lethal injection unless you're like, hey, I want to go by firing squad. And if that state allows that, then that's up to you. So just sort of interesting fun fact there. Does anybody have any questions on anything?
As a question for my students, do you think the Ohio State Reformatory is haunted? Please let us know in the comments section below this video. If you like this video and would like to receive notification of new videos, please feel welcome to subscribe to History and Headlines and become one of our patrons. Your viewership is much appreciated.